All right, Harry, you and I have talked in our conversations before about two natures, right? Our God nature and our human nature. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, last night in our Bible study, we were taking Romans 7 and verses 14 to 20. Paul talks about his personal struggle. He says, I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, and so on. So he's talking about a bunch of verses about that struggle that he has. And I
Mhm.
believe the reason that he gives that struggle is he wants to explain that he too struggles. It's not a given that he has no problem. So he wants to make sure that he doesn't pretend that he's alone on that. In reality, he is and was victorious. Like there's no question that he was victorious, but he still claimed the struggle. In the seven churches of Revelation, in each church, there were some that were victorious. We only get to be victorious from a battle. You don't just be victorious without.
You don't wake up and say, I won the war type of a thing.
Oh, you have a problem. We all have a problem. Paul struggled with his situation. So let's go to the basic reality. The basic reality is the only way to be a Christian is to be born again. Our first birth, is day zero in our life. Our second birth is day zero in our spiritual life, walking with Jesus. A true Christian, I believe, has two natures: the human nature that we know so well, and the Jesus nature, in that he lives in us if we're a Christian. So to describe that, I like the story I heard once about a hobby farmer that lived in the edge of town, and he went to the market and he bought himself this lamb. And he was feeding this lamb, and that went good for a month. And then he went back to the market and he bought himself a little pig also. So after about a week, he calls his farmer friend and he says, my lamb's not doing well. Do you mind having a look and see what's wrong?
Mhm.
So the farmer came over, was leaning on the fence and looking in the at the lamb, and he says, "No," he says, "that lamb's not very happy. It's not going well. It's not going to make it if you don't fix that up." He says, "Where do you feed the lamb?" Well, he says, "In the trough." He says, "Well, where do you feed the pig?" He says, "In the same trough. There's room for both of them." He says, "That's not going to work." He's not going to work. Why not? Lots of room. He says, "The pig's not into sharing,
Mm.
and he says the lamb's not getting anything to eat." And he says, you're going to have to find. He says, "Well, I've only got one pen." He says, "Well, you're going to have to put a fence down the middle of it, and you're going
Mhm.
to have to feed that lamb on purpose, carefully, just like you did before the pig came."
So
And
that
that's
kind of relates to what you're talking about of which nature we are feeding, right?
Yeah, your lamb nature, your second birth nature, doesn't do well on its own. If you put them both in the same trough and just let them both just live as best they can,
Mhm.
your lamb nature is not going to do well. You really have to feed it on purpose. And I just really like that story because if the true Christian, a born again Christian, desperately wants to keep his lamb nature going. There's such a joy and a privilege in walking with God. But Satan says, no, we got other things to do. We got other things to do. Not to worry. It's all good. We'll do that tomorrow. It
Mm.
doesn't work that way. We have to be very, very much on purpose. We do have a struggle, but that struggle can be highly diminished if we have a separate place where we keep our lamb and feed it carefully and feed it right. Let the pig look after itself. And we really that is really, really critical to focus on what is eternal, because it doesn't do well on its own. We have to feed it.
Amen. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.